to personal matters, please make a motion for a recess. For those participating by phone, please keep your device muted unless you are speaking. When speaking, kindly state your name for the benefit of those viewing the live stream. As a reminder, this meeting is being broadcast live. The camera is located above the clock at the back of the council chambers. Our proceedings follow Robert's Rules of Order. As set forth in Wasilla Municipal Code 2.04.090, to promote an orderly and respectful meeting, I respectfully ask the council to observe the following rules. Please seek recognition before speaking. No member may speak more than twice on the same motion without a vote to suspend the rules. No member may speak a second time until all who wish to speak have had an opportunity to do so. These guidelines help ensure fairness, efficiency, and mutual respect during our discussions. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Cottle.
Here.
Councilmember Graham.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Crafton.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
He is participating telephonically. And Councilmember Rubio, Deputy Mayor.
Here.
Thank you. You do have a quorum. All members are with us in chambers except Johnson, who is participating telephonically.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Cottle, would you please lead us?
My pleasure.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item of business is approval of the agenda. Before changes are discussed, are there conflicts of interest to declare? Hearing none, I would like to move AM number 25-61, item 8.41, from the consent agenda and place it under new business, item 10.2. It has come to my attention that one of the applicants resides outside the city limits. Are there additional changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as amended by anonymous consent. Is there an objection? The agenda is approved as amended. There are no special orders of the day. We are now at commissions and agency reports. There does not appear to be anyone from Planning Department in attendance this evening. Please refer to item 11.2 for commission minutes. Their next scheduled meeting is December 9th. At this time, we will hear from the Matanuska-Susitna Borough regarding the transition to area-wide animal care services. Please come forward and begin your presentation by stating your first and last name. You guys can pull more chairs if you want around that.
Madam Deputy Mayor, council members, my name is George Hayes. I'm the Deputy Borough Manager. I've got with me the Director of Animal Care, Vanessa Forbes, and the Chief Animal Control and Regulation Officer, Matt Hardwick. What I'd like to do is just do a brief introduction and then turn some comments over to Vanessa. And then once she is done, we've got Matt here to give us some real live examples of why it's kind of not working now and how we think it'll work better. So number one, this started with an off-site special meeting by the Assembly in August. We had heard already that some of the cities, if not all, might be interested in an area-wide animal care. And so the Assembly asked the borough manager to explore that further and see what we needed to do for area-wide animal care. We checked officially with each one of the cities, and the city mayors, managers, all were at least in favor of exploring that. So we have made up a presentation. We also looked at what the kind of the pluses and negatives were for that. And we then kind of brought it to each one of the cities. And you're the third one at this point. Each of them have asked us kind of to come back. And in your case, we're introducing it today, and then we'll come back, I understand, in December 15th for the public hearing. So with that, I will turn it over to Vanessa and let her talk. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Deputy Mayor and council members. My name is Vanessa Forbes. I'm the Animal Care Director for Animal Care and Regulation for the borough. This was brought to me very shortly after I started in February. And as I've been in this role and working with Matt, we've noticed some areas where it could be a lot more seamless and better for our residents to be able to have area-wide powers instead of non-area-wide. The biggest area that we're looking at is obviously enforcement. So you have in front of you kind of a table or a chart that outlines the different services that we provide, how those are provided right now to the city, and then how they would be provided if we were to go area-wide. So that first row there in blue, enforcement services, is where you would see the most change and fluidity if we were to go to area-wide, including our enforcement of our Title 24, and then our section does investigations, citations, administrative orders, and all of that would be taken over by the borough. So I'm gonna pass it over to Matt. He's been with us for since the dawn of time. He's been with us for a very long time, so he's been able to have some direct experience with how it's been working.
And we'll all be available for questions after.
Evening, Madam Deputy Mayor, council members. My name is Matt Hardwig. I'm the Chief Animal Care and Regulation Officer for the borough. I've been working for animal care regulation for the borough for 22 years. So I have seen the challenges and the changes, not only in Wasilla City for that time frame, but with the borough. Our relationship with the city has been good over the years, but I've seen a lot of conflict, and not with the city or with the enforcement, but with the citizens and between the cities and the boroughs. The problem, that conflict I'm talking about, is when something crosses boundaries and I can't enforce our laws in your city and your city can't enforce it in our borough. To give you an example of a dog from the Wasilla City crosses into borough boundary, bites a child, and then goes back. We cannot enforce those ordinances for across our boundaries. Another example of a problem we've come across, this was probably the most complex one, was Palmer City had a warrant for a house in Wasilla City, and I went and took the animals out of the house. Whose jurisdiction does that fall underneath for enforcement of those animals? It solved itself, so I didn't have to worry about it, but it was still, what do we do? So this going area-wide or having a one ordinance for all borough and city residents has been a wish of mine. It's very difficult for me when I get a call from a city resident and tell them I can't help them. Whether it's the city can help them or not, it's something that's a struggle for us. So this is to have a one ordinance, a one-stop shop, a one place for all borough residents to go, because we're all living here together, basically, even cities and borough residents. Now, I am open to any questions, any concerns about how this would work.
Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Actually, this question is for Vanessa. Thank you. Number one, thanks for being here. I talked about, once again, the first magic line on your handout here. When it talks about city and borough cooperating. So if a city resident calls and says, hey, I have a trouble with my neighbor's got 3 dogs barking all night, can the city respond to that with our code folks and say, hey, there's a problem here, I'm gonna turn it over to the borough, or are we kind of out of the loop altogether on that?
So if it's within city jurisdiction, then it falls to you. We can shelter those animals if we get a call from you saying, we need a place for these animals, and you can bring them to the shelter, but that would lie with the city.
So
if it's
the
within-
normal enforcement procedures, other than sheltering would continue to remain with the city of West Salt.
as it is right now.
Correct, thank you.
If I can expand on that, when you said would continue to, you mean if we don't go area-wide? Because right now,
If you do go area-wide, George,
Then-
I mean, currently, the city has these animal regulation issues, but my question had to do with specific enforcement of Wasilla City Code that deals with, you can't have 6 cattle on your condominium
Right.
property. I mean, is our code enforcement guy gonna be able, or woman, whoever it is at the time, gonna be able to go in and say, hey, there's a problem here. If you don't fix it, I'm gonna call the borough and the borough's gonna take these, or may take these animals. I mean, do we still have control of our code when it comes to animals, or does everything shift over to the borough?
once you go area-wide, or if we go area-wide, then everything shifts over to the borough, then your code would then become null and void. Now, I will say that if you have a particular part of your code, and I've told this to the other 2 cities as well, and let's say you have a code that says we require all dogs within the city limits to have licenses. Well, we don't have that in borough code anymore. So if you wanted that, then you could petition the assembly and say, we'd like this and other portions of our current code to remain in effect within the city of Wasilla. And then you would send that to the assembly, and the assembly could pass that then as part of Title 24, specifically only within the city limits.
Okay. That's
Other
very
than
helpful.
that, your code would no longer be in effect.
Okay, and I see the city attorney, may she add to that, Madam Deputy?
I just want to add to that, and I think also hopefully delineate an idea that you're putting forward, Councilmember Graham, which is we still retain our land use authority. So if you're saying there are only 2 horses allowed on a lot this size, which would live in Title 16, the animal control component doesn't impact that. We would say there's a violation, you're not using your land properly. Now, if we're going to go into the property and take the horses, that's when we're entering into the world of animal care and regulation. That's now going to be, if this passes, transferred to the borough. And I just want to make sure we're all.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So
Oh, yeah, land use is definitely different than the straight animal code. Yes.
Thank you.
Councilman
Madam
Cottle?
Deputy Mayor, just for clarification purposes, if we're to pass ordinance serial number 2541, it is repealing Wasilla Municipal Code Title 7 Animal Care and Regulation and transferring the city's jurisdiction and authority over to animal care with the borough. So we would not be doing anything other than animals on land use. Our Title 7 codes would go away. Yeah, I just wanted that for clarification because I think there's a little bit of mud with some
Yeah, I
of
just
it.
wanted to make sure our land use
Our land use stays.
was not going to be affected by this, particularly since we just spent 2 years working on Title 16. So.
Madam Deputy Mayor,
Councilman Crafton?
thank you. Thank you guys for being here. So just to make sure I also heard you correctly, if we wanted to do anything, basically, we can put more restrictive measures in place if, again, we wanted licenses, to use your example, for dogs in the city limits. We could, but we would have to go to the borough to do that. We couldn't do it at the city level anymore. Essentially, we would have to, in essence, create a resolution stating that this is what we want, or modify the ordinance before us prior to sending it off to the borough. And that might jump to Holly or both of you, but just to clarify, that's what I'm understanding correctly.
Yes, I think at this stage, you're looking at a whole transfer of the animal regulations and control. I think because of the area-wide concerted effort, if we do want to piecemeal that at all, I think that those discussions would need to go back, because what was anticipated by the administration is bringing forward a full transfer.
Thank you. No other questions?
There's no further questions. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We are now at public hearing. Madam Clerk, please read the ordinance by title.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. First public hearing this evening is ordinance serial number 2537, repealing Wasilla Municipal Code, Chapter 1655, Downtown Overlay District, and amending Wasilla Municipal Code 1610-025 definitions, 1650-010 overlay districts, and 16-120-010 decisions subject to appeal, to remove the downtown overlay district and references to that district from Wasilla Municipal Code Title 16.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 25-37 is now open. Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person.
Good evening, Madam Deputy Mayor, council members. My name is David Seals. I am the current chair of the Wasilla Planning Commission. I am really excited that this is coming before you tonight for a vote. This is something that a lot of people have worked on for a long time to remove these restrictions from this area. It is a commercial dead zone and has been for a long time because of restrictions. So I urge that this be passed, and if a downtown overlay needs to be done in the future, it could be something that could be looked at. But for now, this all needs to revert back to commercial property, and DOT needs to be informed that this is passed, that the downtown overlay no longer affects the plans for the couplet. Thank you very much.
Seeing nobody else, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 25-37?
Madam Deputy Mayor, I move ordinance serial number 2537.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Councilmember Crafton and seconded by Councilmember Schmidt to adopt ordinance serial number 25-37. Is there discussion?
Madam Deputy Mayor.
Councilman Crafton?
Thank you. I am very excited about this one. This has probably been one of the top complaints that I've gotten from business owners here in the city of Wasilla. And so I think this is a very good thing that we are looking at repealing this. I know we had this conversation during Title 16, and again, I was glad we separated them just because it was a lot to work with trying to do both of them at the same time. But the other thing that really excites me about this is being able to look at our code and go, hey, this just doesn't work for people, and going, that's okay, we can undo things, we can just get rid of things because it's not working. I feel like a lot of times the government puts things in place and then they want to try and patch it and fix it and try and find a way to make it work because there was a reason why it was put in the first place. But sometimes you just have to go, no, this didn't work, we're going to get rid of it and we're going to start over. And I'm not saying we need to start over and put another downtown overlay in place, but like what Mr. Seals said was that if there is one necessary for the future, you know, it's a completely different process that we're going to be looking at doing. But I am in full support of repealing the downtown overlay district, and I know a lot of people and a lot of business owners will be excited to hear that this gets passed tonight.
Councilman,
Stu, yeah, that's me.
no, Graham.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Crafton, good words there. And I too think this needs to be repealed. I think when it came forward initially, it was a grand idea. You know, let's revitalize the downtown. Let's figure out what makes it work. And this idea was brought in, you know, from other small cities, larger than us, but other small cities to try and revitalize the downtown. So I certainly don't want the Planning Commission or the City Council to think that they wasted their time on this, but I do think it's important that we, you know, as elected office holders say, you know, hey, we made a mistake. Let's fix it, and this is fixing that mistake.
Councilman Schmidt?
Yeah, I also agree in repealing this. As many of the businesses that I talked to, it literally inhibited a lot of different things for business to grow. And I think getting rid of this is going to be a wise decision.
Madam Deputy Mayor, Councilmember Schmidt, I think we have a microphone problem, so if we could take a brief at ease to get him a mic, that would be great.
Darth Vader.
Apparently, we need to start doing some mic checks at the beginning of meetings.
The elected officials need to bring their own mic.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none, is there an objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. Madam Clerk, please read ordinance serial number 25-38 by title.
Thank you. That's amending the fiscal year 2026 budget by accepting and appropriating $340,000 from an amendment to the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Dispatch contract to add 2 new full-time positions at MATCOM, 1 fire EMS call taker and 1 dispatcher.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 25-38 is now open. Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. No takers. Okay. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 25-38?
Madam Deputy Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance serial number 2538.
Is there a second?
Graham seconds.
It has been moved by Councilmember Cottle and seconded by Councilmember Graham to adopt ordinance serial number 2538. Is there discussion? Councilman Graham?
Thank you. I do have just one question here, and hopefully our MATCOM director can answer it. I mean, we're accepting $340,000 for these 2 positions. Is there some sort of, handshake agreement with the borough that we will continue to do this? Because what we're doing here is we're adding PERS positions here, and if the borough thinks that this is going to be a temporary situation, I'm concerned.
It's not,
Councilman Graham, sorry, Councilman. Can we ask the Ted Finance
For PERS.
for PERS?
Through Deputy Mayor Rubio to Councilmember Graham, is that we have a total number of positions, and as long as my understanding is we don't do away with the full class, that if something would happen and we had to lay off people, it wouldn't cause a termination study, is my understanding for the
Yeah, the problem
City.
with PERS, I mean, a lot of times those termination studies, those additional costs arise when you eliminate a classification, and that's something we have to think about, where our city is of a size that we might eliminate a department if we create a department, so we're always careful in that way, but this doesn't trigger those types of concerns.
I'm glad to hear that, but I would be interested in the other question. I mean, does the borough consider this to be a semi-permanent arrangement? I mean, they didn't say, let's just try this for a year and see what happens, or?
they're wanting to try it with the part-time additional person, and then they will continue, their intent is to continue with the part-time on for the next contract bid. They may want to go ahead and go an extra full-time person, so that's what I look for it to happen, is they'll want another person to add next year. But they were hoping to get this done sooner rather than later, so that they can have time to study it before their next budget cycle and make sure they can add another person too.
And are we letting these people that we're bringing on know that this is a temporarily funded position, or? test position, so to
We
speak?
haven't had that discussion yet because we're waiting for confirmation to get this approved, so.
Madam Deputy Mayor.
Councilman Crafton?
Thank you. Sorry, did you say they're wanting to do a part-time position first?
Well, it's, we're putting an extra person on just half-time. So adding those 2 positions is only covering 12 hours out of each day.
Sorry, Miss. Ted's got
Councilman
his hand up
Crafton,
there.
yeah, we're gonna relay over to Ted.
Oh, thanks. Deputy Mayor and to Councilman Ian, we are requesting 2 full-time positions
Correct.
for this contract that would go forward if the council, or if the Mat-Su Borough would do an appropriation next year. So this contract amendment that we have for the $340,000 is for just FY '26. And the understanding is if these people are needed and it's doing or these positions are doing what the borough is expecting the positions to do, that they would come back with another subject to appropriation amendment in FY '27. But yes, it is understood in our meetings with the borough manager that if we didn't get an amendment next year through the appropriation process in January through June, that those 2 positions would be eliminated.
Thank you. Answers my question.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none. Is there an objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. We are now at persons to be heard, a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. Please note that this is not a question and answer period. Speakers may be referred to administration, and items raised may be taken under advisement. Please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name, and if you are a city resident, comments are limited to 3 minutes. First one is William Baxter.
I'm William Baxter. I'm from Anchorage, but I used to live out here. My parents lived up Wasilla Fisher for many years, and I volunteer for FFA and other things I do. And I was at the Grange last night, which is an agriculture program. It's been around since the 1800s, and one of the things I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get a Grange in Anchorage, but also Grange could help with like CUNY gardening. I think it'd be a good idea to. We're in Anchorage. We got in Fairview. We have 2 community gardens, and it's a good way to get the family, people interested in farming and gardening and that. And it's just when I lived out here in Wasilla, my mom was raised on a farm, and my dad was, he liked to raise chickens and turkeys and that up here on Wasilla Fishhook, and when we were kids, we had ducks and geese and that, and 4-H is another good thing. One I volunteer for, and I think we need to expand our farming more. One of the things I noticed is farming is hidden in Alaska. When you go, why people have boats and fishing boats and 4-wheelers and that? Well, you see them go down the road. You see tractors go down the road, and you come out here now. I don't from Wasilla to from Anchorage. You don't see no farms out here anymore along the highway. And then also you go to Palmer. You don't see any farms there. You used to see them at Four Corners. They're big potato farm, but it's not there anymore. Thank you.
Tim Stearns? Or Tom Stearns, sorry. There you go, my mic's on now. I don't know, Tom Stearns.
After all these years.
I know, Tom, sorry.
Goodness,
It could be your handwriting, you should have been a doctor.
that could be the problem. Good evening. My name is Tom Stearns. I'm the Senior Ambassador for the Wasilla Area Seniors Incorporated. What's happening at Wassy? Well, most of you probably have already picked up your pies from our My Oh My It's Pies. And so you know that we just completed a fundraiser. But what you don't know is that we were not expecting, one, to do this year. And then just at the end, we said, okay, we'll do it. Our expectation was to get probably maybe $2,000 out of the fundraiser. Once everybody started donating pies and stuff, we ended up with a total of $7,000 as the end total. And that was really exciting. So that was that. Now, what's coming up in the future? Well, the future starts here on Wednesday. Wednesday is one of the best meals that you will find in the valley at Wassy. And we put in a very big effort for our Thanksgiving meal. And you will see that our place is packed out. It will probably have 150 people there, and it will be a great lunch. And so I would encourage you, if you have the opportunity, to be there for that. Then, on the 23rd of December, we will do it all over again. Different motif. It'll be Christmas, and we will have another great meal, and so we would request your presence there for that. Now, one other thing that's happening, and it's something that you can all help us with. It's the Wassy Christmas Giving. We do this every year. We collect things for seniors, and then we put them in a bag, and on that 23rd of December, everybody gets together, they have this great meal, and the seniors get the opportunity and go to get one of these bags. If you saw the smiles and the on the faces of the people, it may be the only thing that they get for Christmas. And they are so excited and so thankful for that. And that's because of our sponsors, people that help us with all these things, collecting all these things and putting them all together. So we thank you for that.
Madam Deputy Mayor, can I ask him 2 quick clarifying questions?
Go ahead, Crafton.
Thank you. Wednesday, what time was the dinner? I don't think I heard what it was.
I would suggest you be there by 11. It will start at probably 11:30, but if you want a seat, you want to get there about 11.
Perfect. And then another clarifying question. On your giving one here, it says that to shop online, are people allowed to go other places, try and get the other items from other places they want, or do you specifically want them purchased from the ways to give online there?
No, you can get your gifts from any place.
Perfect.
And then just send them over to us. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you. We are now at the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the items for the approval under the consent agenda by title.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Regular meeting minutes, November 10th, 2025. We have 3 introductions for a public hearing date on December 15th, 2025. The first is ordinance serial number 2539, amending Wasilla Municipal Code, Section 504060, examination of city financial records and financial statements to change the required completion date of the annual audit from November 30 to January 31st. Ordinance serial number 2540, amending Wasilla Municipal Code Section 504030, general fixed assets, to increase the fixed asset capitalization threshold from 5,000 to 10,000. And lastly, ordinance serial number 2541, repealing Wasilla Municipal Code Title 7, Animal Care and Regulation, to transfer the city's jurisdiction and authority over animal care to the Matanuska-Susitna Borough on an area-wide basis, effective upon the borough's acceptance of such jurisdiction and authority. We have no resolutions, and our AM was moved to new business, so that's it.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Madam Deputy Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Is there a second?
Madam Deputy Mayor, I'll second the motion.
It has been moved by Councilmember Cottle and seconded by Councilmember Crafton to approve the consent agenda as read. Is there any objection?
Madam Deputy Mayor. Madam Clerk, did I not hear you say that minutes of the meeting were part of it?
You did. You heard me say that.
Okay, thank you.
Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. There is no unfinished business, so we'll move directly to new business. The city attorney will provide ethics training.
Madam Deputy Mayor, would the council like to take the two action items first, if I
Yes,
may?
please.
Okay.
No offense, Holly.
So if there's no objection from the body, we'll begin with AM number 2561, confirmation of the mayoral appointment of Tommy Truitt, Dan Fleckenstein, and Megan Montegain. Apologize if I botched that last name, to the Parks and Recreation Commission, Aaron McCarthy to the Airport Advisory Commission, and Carolyn DeYoung and Simon Brown to the Planning Commission. Motion to adopt.
Is there a motion to adopt?
Madam Mayor, I move AM 2561.
Is there a second?
Cottle seconds.
Motion has been moved by Councilman Graham and second by Councilmember Cottle to approve.
Madam Deputy Mayor.
Councilman Crafton?
Be
Or I mean
council-
Graham, oops.
I've been called much worse.
Okay.
I move to postpone to the next regular meeting due to the fact that this is a mayoral appointments and the mayor is not here to speak to this.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Want me to read that in or you want to read it?
No, is there any objection?
Is there an objection?
Did we discuss it first? I just had a quick question though.
You can.
Mostly just, I think it'd probably be our clerk, the Tommy Truitt situation here, are we gonna just strike it at the next meeting then at this point? It just carries over for now, or?
Since the motion to postpone has already been moved and is on the floor, we'll wait to amend.
Okay, thank you.
You ready? So no objection then to the postponement? Madam Deputy Mayor, if I may, we'll move on then to the resolution serial number 2537, authorizing the Matanuska-Susitna Borough to provide area-wide animal care services within the city of Wasilla.
Is there a motion to adopt resolution serial number 25-37?
Madam Deputy Mayor, I move to adopt resolution serial number 2537.
Is there a second?
Graham seconds.
It has been moved by Councilmember Cottle and seconded by Councilmember Graham to adopt resolution serial number 25-37. Is there discussion? Councilmember Graham?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I can't think of any reason to object to this. The borough is the one that has the experience, the continuous experience dealing with animals. The borough is the one who owns and operates the animal shelter and has improved that over time. So as time goes by, they're getting better and better. Instead of getting more and more complaints, it's getting less and less. So, yeah, this is a wise move for the city to let people with expertise handle this. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none, is there an objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted.
Next, we have ethics training by City Attorney Holly Wells.
Thank you. I'm just gonna, I think, can I use this over here, Sarah, or no?
Is it on?
Well, I could probably have to. Oh, okay. All right, never mind. I'm ready. Okay, so at first I want to say you have a PowerPoint in front of you. We're gonna have sort of a ethics training, that's incorporated into the meeting to the extent that council finds that they want a freestanding, independent ethics training at some point, then that would be a conversation with the clerk. Of course, that is something we can do as well, but we thought we'd try this approach first, in part because several council members were on the council when we when the ethics code was adopted in 2022, or were engaged in, I think there may have been commission members at that time. So it's a fairly recent code adoption. And so hopefully some of these provisions will feel familiar and there's a greater understanding of them. That said, this is a 13 or so page PowerPoint, and it is designed to be a reference for you, even though I don't plan on going through this PowerPoint line by line. I don't think that's in your best interest. So moving on, first and foremost, the Wasilla Code of Ethics has a really strong purpose statement. And this purpose statement is a guiding interpretation piece for the city. So as you're trying to, when you look at what the prohibited acts are, or when you're thinking about your own conduct as an elected official, one of the places to ground yourself is in the purpose statement. I'm going to read that purpose statement because I think that it's helpful to have both in the record and for the public to know, but also as a reminder. The purpose of the Wasilla's Code of Ethics states that the city expects all city officials to serve the public with equality, honesty, and transparency, and to take actions that the official believes best serve the public and city. The public has a right to conscientious, loyal, faithful, and unbiased service by its officials, performed free of deceit, undue influence, conflict of interest, self-enrichment, self-dealing, concealment, bribery, fraud, and corruption. The city has an obligation to the public and city officials to establish standards of ethical conduct, promote ethics education for all city officials, provide clear guidance to city officials of the ethical procedures and standards of the city, recommend procedures that promote ethical behavior, and hold city officials responsible and accountable for their behavior, and promote procedures that protect city officials, employees, and members of the public from harassment or retribution should they raise concerns about activities that do not appear to be in line with ethical behavior. So this is a very strong purpose statement, as you can see. And one of the things I can say, and you should be very proud of, is there are very few ethics complaints in the city, and there are, it is very unusual to see violations of the ethics code, but the council members do also ask questions, whether you're asking of the clerk or you're seeking advisory opinions of the city attorney. You really do use those components of your code, and it's very healthy in its administration. So the other thing to note is that Wasilla's Code of Ethics is not blind to the fact that you're in a small town. And if you prohibit all interests or actions on items that you may have any interest, that you'll make no decisions at all. So that is incorporated into the language of the code. And it recognizes that that you need to protect the public from decisions that involve substantial financial interests, but make sure that the council members are engaged in making decisions so that, and that people who want to serve as elected officials retain their rights to personal and financial interests, and that there's an outlet there for them. So in 2.01030C is where you really get language that strikes that balance. So one of the most important things to understand with the Code of Ethics, and it can get a little confusing, is who is covered. So a council, when they adopted this with the Code of Ethics years ago, although not that many years ago, they included the city clerk and the city attorney as city officials. It also includes the elected officials of the city and appointees to commissions. So that's an important, so it does not include, and that's what it's important to note, it does not include city employees. Now, city employees are subject to a lot of ethics provisions. We'll talk a little bit about that. And there are some of these ethics provisions from Title II that are incorporated into Title III and apply to city employees. But the consequences of a violation are different, all right? So they may be subject to discipline action, for example, whereas the ethics complaint process is reserved for these elected and appointed officials and the city attorney and the city clerk. I'm not going to spend too much time on the conflict of interest piece because I feel like that's the piece we work with regularly. Council is, and council members are repeatedly declaring a conflict of interest when they, declaring a financial interest when they have one and disclosing it. And then the mayor determines if that interest is substantial or is not substantial. If the council disagrees with the mayor's decision, the council can make a motion and find otherwise. Similarly, if the mayor is the one who has an interest, that interest is decided upon by the council. And so that basic construct, I believe all of you are familiar with that. If anyone feels like they want to go through that in more detail, raise your hand. Okay, moving on. So substantial financial interest, I've included the provision regarding what that is in this training. I don't think we need to go through it. I feel like you're very familiar with it. I think one of the things to note is that the substantial financial interest test adopted by Wasilla mirrors the test adopted by the courts. And so while some municipalities will just have a number, Wasilla has factors that are weighed in determining whether or not an interest is substantial. Those factors are whether the financial interest is a substantial part of the consideration, whether the interest will be significantly impacted or changed by the outcome of the official action, whether the interest is immediate and known or attenuated and dependent on factors beyond the official action, and whether a reasonable person would consider the financial interest significant and would expect a person to take actions and make decisions to protect that financial interest. We get these from case law. We get these from the court. This is what they think a financial interest, a substantial financial interest looks like. But one of the things that Wasilla did do to ensure that we can answer these questions a little easier, or have, they adopted a presumption of substantial financial interest for interests that with a value greater than $1,000. So what I expect to see as time goes on is council considering that number, because clearly $1,000 today is not $1,000 5 years from now, and $1,000 in 2022 is not even $1,000 today. You know, so that's one of the things as council members, as you're navigating out there, remember that the purpose of your ethics code is to find balance between your interests and your involvement in your community and your role as a council member or the role of a commissioner. And so that number may need to change at times. You shouldn't be afraid to talk with the clerk about bringing, sponsorship or bringing something forward, if that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions so far? I'm moving quickly because I want to cover all of the things, and there's quite a few prohibited acts. So, but, one of the things we incorporated is something that also exists in what we call common law, right, under case law, and that's called the rule of necessity. This is used a lot by the courts, regardless of whether or not it's in your code, but not a lot of communities have expressly adopted it. I think one of the things that, the good things about putting it in your code is you're going to use it right if you end up using it, instead of relying on it because you didn't have anything to use and so just issued a decision, or even worse, just become paralyzed and unable to make a decision. So the rule of necessity is designed to allow a body to make a decision when they're not going to get to a majority vote with uninterested members. So it's one of those things, you have a very important decision, it has to be issued, but maybe 3 of your council members have a conflict on that thing. And the alternative is that you just don't get to make a decision on that issue. You know, so that is not an outcome that bodes well for a city if it's an important decision that you need to make. So what this does is it creates a rule of necessity, and there's 3 provisions. So the provisions are, it would apply, but only where, by reason of being excused for conflicts of interest, the number of council members is reduced to less than the minimum number required to approve the official action. No other body of the city has jurisdiction and authority to take the official action. The official action cannot be set aside to a later date within a reasonable time when council could obtain the minimum number of members to take action who are not excused. Basically meaning that conflict is just going to be there, you know, for a long period of time, and you just cannot escape it. So that is the rule of necessity, and it's good for the public to know about that too, because when it comes up, you know, it's unusual.
Madam
I don't
Deputy Mayor.
believe the rule of necessity has been used since this was adopted, so it's very, very rare.
So just to-
Councilmember Crafton?
Thank you. So curiosity kind of thing. Basically, what ends up happening is the council's gonna vote, and it's just kind of, hey, everybody's got a conflict of interest here, or most of the council has a conflict of interest, we're gonna vote on this matter. Does anybody how do I ask this? Is a member of the public able to step in and say, hey, you know, I feel like the vote should have gone a different way? I mean, what would be the repercussions or actions that somebody could take if something like this were to happen and basically somebody felt that the council made a decision completely biased because of the conflict of interest? I mean, is that in place somewhere?
Well, I mean, I think what it is you would look to case law and say the rule of necessity is a rule of law that is respected and applicable and has been found to comply with what is in essence a substantive due process consideration. Are you making an arbitrary decision? You know, and if you're making a quasi-judicial decision, which council rarely if ever does, but in theory could, there's a provision in your code of ethics that gives a hearing officer jurisdiction to hear a matter if the rule of necessity would otherwise be triggered. So you protect in that sense, and if it's going to be quasi-judicial, it would go to a hearing officer, because under the rule of necessity, it says if anybody else has jurisdiction to hear it, right, that they're gonna hear it. You can only decide it if no other body or person has jurisdiction to hear it. So you protected those quasi-judicial pieces. But in the realm of legislation, this code would protect you legally if it's followed. And that's why that doesn't mean, you know, so it could go to court, and again, you never know what's gonna happen in court, but you would have local law and state case law that supported what the city did, which is pretty strong support.
To follow up. And I guess I wasn't asking the question of whether they had the right to make the vote. Obviously, they do. It's more so a resident said, hey, I don't think that was the way you should have voted that. I believe you were biased and that you voted in favor of your bias. Does somebody have a repercussion, or would you, basically like what you said, it just needs to end up in court at that point? Or hope that the council goes, obviously, we're biased here, so we're gonna say no, or yes, whatever the factor might be to make the decision, so that they can kind of say, hey, even though we're biased, we're gonna not go do this thing or do this thing, depending on what the outcome was.
Yeah, I mean, I think what council will have to do is try not to be arbitrary. You know, that's the only, and that's what you can say to the public is, we had to use the rule of necessity. We worked really hard to issue findings, like to share our reasons, to make sure we had reasons, and to make sure we didn't make an arbitrary decision. We can't guarantee that our biases didn't come into, you know, our votes, but we can't guarantee that we would not make an arbitrary decision, which ultimately is what the courts are looking at. When you make a legislative decision, that is the question. I mean, obviously if you make a decision that violates some other federal or state law, or, is discriminatory or violates the Constitution. But other than that, assuming it doesn't do those things, the question is, have you made a decision that is not unreasonable? That is intentional, so to make it even sort of less, it's not just, it's not that it has to be unreasonable, it has to be not unreasonable or arbitrary. So that's,
Thank you.
and so.
Madam Deputy Mayor, Tim Johnson.
Councilman Johnson?
Yes. The way I'm seeing this is the rule of necessity then will actually protect the councilmen that would have the conflict of interest, but it really wouldn't take the council as a whole off the hook. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think you still have to act in a way that's not unreasonable and is not arbitrary. So council will still need to do that. The rule of necessity says, look, we either can make a decision and govern, or we can do nothing and not be able to govern a particular area of, of our, that's within our authority that we need to be doing. So it's designed to keep the wheels turning on a city, or a borough, any municipality, really. Does that answer your question, Councilmember Johnson? So I don't know if they're really on the hook, but you're right that they're on the hook to make decisions in the same way that they normally are required to do.
Yes, that would be the way I'd understand it. It would provide a path forward.
Yes, exactly. And again, hasn't come up, so it's an interesting rule. It's important that it's there, but so far we haven't had to use it. Thank goodness. So, and Councilmember Johnson, I am not sure, we're on slide 7, and I haven't been saying that, I'm sorry. That's helpful. Okay. And we're moving on to slide 8. And so here, what we're really looking at, so there's the conflict of interest. That's where we spend most of our time with Code of Ethics, but lots of communities have conflicts of interest provisions. So where is it that we really start to see the meat of your code? And that is in the prohibited acts that are listed in 2.01 060. And that is where we look at we have sort of a laundry list of things that city officials are prohibited from doing. So 1, the city officials are prohibited from making false statements. So this is important to note. So they cannot make false statements in order to influence official action. So that means we're not out there policing the statements of city officials in all areas, right? We do, however, the city does have the ability to look at false statements that are made to influence official action. And remember, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but we have the ethics complaint process means that the public also can hold city officials accountable for what are perceived or alleged false statements. Inappropriate use of title or authority. So that is also prohibited. No city official shall use the implied authority of their office or position for the purpose of unduly influencing the decisions of others or promoting more personal interests within the community. Unless duly appointed by council to represent the interests of the full council, council members shall refrain from implying the representation of the whole by the use of their title. So this is one of those things, I highly recommend just calling the clerk as your first step in the process, when sometimes you're going to be at an event and you're not really sure what hat you have on, and you're not really sure if you're there in an official capacity. The lines can get blurred, especially when, there may be sort of a lobbying effort in Juneau, or attending a chamber meeting, and you're wearing many hats, so this is a good one to keep your eye on and make sure you watch, and sometimes just get comfortable saying things like, I'm here in my private capacity, or this is my opinion in my personal capacity. And then for council when you want someone to speak for council, making sure you give them the protection to do that by passing a resolution or something that puts them in that position. So representing private interests is also prohibited. So no city official shall, for compensation, and that is an important distinction, represent or assist those representing private business or personal interests before council, administration, or any city board, commission, or agency. Nothing in this section, however, prevents an official from making verbal or written inquiries on behalf of constituents or the general public to elements of city government, or from requesting explanations or additional information on behalf of your constituents. No official may solicit or accept a benefit or anything of value from any person for having performed this service. This is just trying to prevent that dance between a council member as a persuasive vote on council and voice on council and a consultant in the community where people are compensating you because of the power of your voice with the very body you're trying to influence, right? So that is what these prohibitions against representing private interests are designed to address. A lot of communities have both this one and the inappropriate use or title. A lot of communities have both of those. They'll have them as separate or distinct provisions, so not necessarily incorporated into a code of ethics. So another prohibition is one against disseminating confidential information. Most communities prohibit this in some way, but a lot of them fail to codify it in a way that it can be enforced, and so this is something that Wasilla has chosen to do. The other is gratuities is another prohibition. It's really important for you to read that one. That's another one with a number, so it's another one to keep in mind. The number right now is meals under $75 in value are not prohibited. I believe that that's the same thing for gifts. Nothing. It's not prohibited if it's an occasional, what they call non-pecuniary gift, and it's less than $75 in value. Also, it's not prohibited to receive a gift presented by an employer to its employees in recognition of meritorious service or civic or public awards. Any discounts or prizes that are generally available to the public or large sections of the public. When you serve as a council member or city official, you don't lose your right to be and participate as a member of the public. So any benefit that goes to the public, any prizes, any fun, handout, or I don't know, a privilege, or it's not, you're never going to be asked to forfeit that, because we can't, because you have the same protections. Not because we can. I'm not saying the city would take that from you if they could. I'm just saying that that's one way to think of it is, am I participating as a member of the public? If you come across something and you wonder, can I do this as a council member? The answer is going to be yes if it's open to the public. And now, that said, to the extent can you all do it together at a specific time, that might be different under the Open Meetings Act. So here are so gratuities you want to pay attention to, that number you want to pay attention to, because things are going up really fast, and I feel like $75 should be fine to cover a meal, but I think you should be watching your checks on that, just because I think it's starting to go up. And you could have a nice dinner and a few drinks when you're in a position where you are, it would normally be something you don't think about. Someone offers to treat you, and you're at $85. I can't believe I'm saying that, but that is very possible. So use of city property for personal purposes is also prohibited. So you want to make sure you read that if you're in a position where you're using city property. I think you can ignore it unless that occurs. And we've got more. Political activities are prohibited, certain political activities. And this one's really important to pay attention to, because this is another one you can fall into. A city official may not take an active part in a political campaign or other political activity when on duty. Now, nothing here prevents city officials from exercising a right to vote, contribute to a campaign or a candidate, or expressing the official's political views when they are not on duty, or engaging with the public in their capacity as a city official. But what you have to watch is if you show up somewhere and you introduce yourself as a city council member, or you're attending something and you're talking about the interests of council, or you're there in your capacity as a member of council, and then you start sharing your political viewpoints on a candidate. That is something to be very wary of. It's very easy to either get sideways, or perhaps more importantly, appear to get sideways of this prohibition. And while ethics complaints, there's a process to vet them and make sure that you are not sanctioned, or there are no remedies given for a violation that does not occur. It is still a process, and it is still unnerving to go through a process when people think there's a violation. So for that reason, I would say really pay attention to what hat you have on and how you're communicating. And if you have any questions about that, either get an advisory opinion, so you have that to sort of carry around with you, or call the clerk and kind of talk it through, if that's okay, Jamie, first, and then she can help you identify what next steps. I'm gonna take a breath. Anybody have any questions? I've gone through quite a few. Okay, is this pace okay, or is this a little too quick? Not quick enough? Okay. All right, I'll keep going. All right, improper influence. A city official may not contact the employer of other city officials or threaten financial harm to other city officials in an attempt to influence their actions, votes, or positions. This is something it's not something I've seen in Wasilla, but I have seen this numerous times. And so this is an important one to have in your code, but so far, maybe not for you guys, you're doing great. So impartiality in conducting city business. This one is very, very strong for a community. And it was something that council wanted, and it's in line with your oath. But I just want you to be aware that the prohibition against acting impartially when conducting city business in a blanket sense is very strong. Now, that said, almost every community has an element of that in their oath of office, but a few carry it through in their code. What it means is, the way I interpret this is, there are the actions you take as council members that come before you as a body. There's procurement, there's all of those things. You declare any financial interest you have, council decides if it's substantial, and that's sort of the model for that, right? As far as partiality, whether or not you are impartial, that you need to disclose that, and that is something that is determined in a quasi-judicial proceeding. Here, there is a presumption that you will you will disclose if you are acting impartially or in a position to act impartially, which means when we look at what the difference between being, say, having a substantial financial interest, which is tangible, and being partial or impartial, it really comes down to what you believe, right? Do you think you're partial or impartial for purposes of legislative actions? And so if this comes up where you are sponsoring or introducing an ordinance or an action, then we're gonna look at what would a reasonable person believe? Would they believe that but if you are acting in your passive role as a council member and things are coming to you, I think we would, based on the law, we would be looking at you to act lawfully and comply with the law. So that's just sort of to give you some, because that one's really hard. It's hard to navigate. But when in doubt, disclose, raise the issue if you think that you may be impartial, or if or partial, or if you're certain that you're impartial, but you want the public to know that this is your best friend, or this is somebody that, that there's some interest that exists there, but that you feel like you could make a impartial decision, so that's a conversation with the public. Any questions on that one? Okay. All right, employment and financial disclosures. We talked a little bit about this, so I won't go into it too much as far as who the code covers, but it's also important for you to remember that council member, during your term, council members may not represent or advise a person in any manner pending before a city body. So that's a restriction that can have a cost, so it's very important that council members are aware of that. During the term for which elected and for 1 year after leaving office, city council members and the mayor are not eligible for city employment unless it comes back to council and they approve it, which, I don't know, Jamie, has that ever happened where we've had?
Not to my knowledge.
Finally, don't forget to complete your financial disclosure statements every year, and that lives in the code of ethics as well. So another area that's encompassed into the code of ethics, and this has been in your code for a long time, but it was moved over to the code of ethics when the code of ethics was adopted. So this deals with contracting and purchasing for the city. And it states that a city official has a financial interest in any bid or proposal for a city contract shall disclose that interest by filing a written notice of that interest with the purchasing officer. And that has to be done not less than 10 business days before submission of the bid or proposal in which the official has an interest. This is a hard one to comply with because you don't necessarily know. You have to be watching, and it has to be triggered. And I think this is something that I know the administration is working on to ensure that you get that trigger if they know, right? So, because when you look at it, so it's going to be appointees and council and the city clerk and the city attorney. I mean, it will impact us, but so basically 10 days before submission of the bid or proposal in which the official has an interest. So you may have an interest in a bid or proposal and not know when it's getting submitted. Does that make sense? So this is one that it really takes everyone's involvement to help ensure that there's compliance, I think, in some cases. In some cases, it'll be very obvious. If you have a family member living in your household who is submitting a bid, you're gonna know they're submitting a bid, right? If they're going in and submitting, but you're not gonna necessarily know that if it's, if maybe one of your kids runs a business and, or they're a subcontractor and they're pulled in on the bid. So there's a lot of circumstances here. So just be aware that it's there, and then, that's one that the administration can work with the council members on. The other piece of this is if you determine that there has been a misstep, just tell the clerk as soon as possible, because then we can retroactively address it, and bring that before council in a way that sort of ratifies it if it's not intentional, because I think this one's a little difficult. But important, it's probably, so let's see. All right, the other thing to note here, so the purchasing officer posts the written notice at the place maintained for the posting of public notices at City Hall. So that's just another thing to note. So when you see it up there, you're not surprised. No city official has a financial interest in any bid or proposal for a city contract may participate in the city's decision to award the contract. That's, I think we are all comfortable and know that. No city official may solicit or receive any form of compensation from any party other than the city in connection with awarding of a city contract. That one is, sort of common sense. But I think one of the other things here is this provision remains. It hasn't been changed to add more restrictive consequences. This came from your code, and it is worth noting that it says anyone who violates this is guilty of a misconduct in office and a violation of the oath of office. A contract entered into in violation of this section is voidable by council. So, it's pretty it's very clear that the Wasilla City Council wants arm's length transactions, especially when it comes to procurement, and has adopted codes to make that happen. And again, I think that council does a great job of complying with these things, so this is training, not warning. You know, so, does anybody have any questions so far? No. Okay, moving on. Just a reminder, this does not apply to city employees. I do worry because we start talking about city officials. City officials often do encompass employees in other arenas. So a lot of times we'll try to impute these code provisions and prohibited acts on employees. So we just always want to keep that separation in mind. That said, the Title III does encompass a lot of these into the personnel policies, the list of prohibited acts. For example, an employee who has a financial interest as defined in the ethics code, whether it's direct or indirect, in the sale of any lands, materials, supplies, or services, does have a requirement to tell the mayor and disclose that interest to the mayor. And generally, what needs to happen is that an employee is screened off or not permitted to take any official action on that matter. So it's a very similar process. It's just done under an employment process. All right, so how do you stay out of trouble? Right, because this is a lot of rules, right? You talk to your city clerk. As you all know, I don't have to tell you this, Wasilla has an incredibly competent, knowledgeable, experienced city clerk and deputy city clerk as well. So you have this is a great resource, and just have the talk. One of the things that really scares me, if people are afraid of these laws, that is when they are most likely to run afoul of them, and those ethics complaints start coming in. If we're willing to make mistakes and disclose them, then we can navigate these things usually. It's a lot easier. Also, attend, no, I don't want to leave there. Okay, attend regularly scheduled ethics trainings and making sure we have them, even if we do them this way and we just kind of get it all out there, and maybe we, in a couple months we have another one, so it's just, stays fresh on our minds. And then it's important to know, and I know the council members are aware of this, but use the advisory opinion component, because you can ask and you'll get an opinion, and we do try to turn them around fairly quickly, and it's binding, on the city, and it protects the council members from ethics complaints. So that's a really powerful tool. And then again, just disclose if there's a problem. And that is sort of your ethics training on the Code of Ethics. Are there any questions? Any concerns? All right.
Thank you, Holly. We are now at communications. Madam Clerk, please read the items by title.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Item number 2518, Lake Lucille Park Playground Removal. Item number 2519, Monthly Financial Reports for the period ending July 31st, 2025. Item number 2520, Monthly Financial Reports for the period ending August 31st, 2025. Item number 2521, which is the City of Wasilla's 2026 holiday schedule. And lastly, item number 2522, the McGrath Job Classification Study Report with 2 sets of commission meeting minutes, Planning Commission September 9 and October 14, 2025.
We are now at audience comments, which is a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or a time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to administrations, or issues raised may be taken under advisement for council or administration. No takers. We are now at mayor, clerk, attorney, and council comments. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. I do, council, if we could pick a couple dates. I had sent out an email. Our finance department through the mayor is looking for 2 4-hour sessions in January to kick off our budget season. I thought maybe weekdays from 10 to 2 but I don't know, I just want council, I don't know what your schedules are. So I'll turn it over to whoever.
Councilman Graham?
Thank you. I don't think the 4-hour sessions give council adequate time to prepare. The administration has a habit of giving us a ton of information at the last minute, which is essentially forcing us to make decisions on things where we haven't had adequate time to study and prepare. So I would recommend that we go back to the mayor and say, break this up into 2-hour sessions, make sure that you provide us information, a minimum, complete information, none of this last minute, laid on the table kind of stuff. Give us complete information for the meeting so we have time to study and be able to ask reasonable questions and make informed decisions regarding the budget of the city. So I don't agree with the idea of 4-hour meetings, and therefore I don't suggest any dates for those.
Councilman Crafton?
Thank you. I'm kind of in line with what Mr. Graham was saying. My concern is just 4 hours is a long time in the middle of the day. I understand that these meetings are not generally attended by the public, but I still think the opportunity for them to attend is better done in the evening time. That's when we usually do the meetings, and we could do a Saturday, but we've done a 5-hour Saturday meeting, and that's just grueling to do. It's too long of a day. My thought would be, I liked the 3 hours. I think 3 hours was long enough that we could get through enough information, but not so long that it was burdensome on us. I think about that 2.5 hour, 3 hour mark, we're all tired anyways. So I would think if we did 2-3 hours, and then if we needed the additional 2 hours on a third day, we could, because the mayor asked for 8 hours. That would be something I'd be a little bit more okay with in that sense. But I do like what Mr. Graham said about making sure we're getting that information early enough, because again, it's a lot to digest, and usually those are the types of things I'm reading 2, if not 3 times before a meeting. So making sure we're getting it ahead of time and not 4 o'clock before a meeting would be great.
Maybe. Through the chair to the council then, would the group be amenable to 3-hour evening meetings, maybe on Mondays? And then we'll use our same packet deadline. We'll ensure that you have your packets 5 days ahead of time, which is our standard.
I would think that's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any dates that don't work for anybody? They're completely off the table.
I would prefer not Thursday nights.
Okay.
I like the idea of Mondays, even though we would be scheduling Monday after Monday after Monday, but we're kind of used to being here on Mondays, and the folks that attend the meetings are used to being here on Mondays. I think it fits into everybody's schedule reasonably well.
So through the chair, so we have 2 Monday council meetings in January, the 12th and the 26th. I'm not sure through the administration we could make a January 5th meeting, so that actually only leaves us 1 meeting in January on the 19th.
I would almost prefer these to be back to back. I know that sometimes is a lot, but again, sometimes this information is easily digestible when they're back to back like that. But also at the same time, it goes back to what happens at one meeting. A day's not always enough to think about it. So it'd almost be good to have 2 meetings back to back, and then the third final one on a different day.
How does the 19th and the 20th, so that's Monday and Tuesday, and then maybe the 28th, Wednesday the 28th?
I would prefer not to do back-to-back just because of the homework time that's involved there. I have no objections to 2 meetings in a week, but spread them out, and since it is, setting the budget as the primary responsibility that the council has during the year, I wouldn't object to even doing a Friday meeting or a Saturday meeting to make that work. But I think when you put 2 meetings back to back and you don't have that time in between to study and reflect on what happened on Monday before you're making decisions on Tuesday, I don't know, I just don't think it sets us up for the most effective decision making.
What if we did a Monday, Wednesday, Friday then?
Or how about if we did the 19th, which is a Monday, Wednesday the 21st, and Wednesday the 28th?
No objection.
I think that's okay.
Mr. Johnson, does that work for you?
Yes,
I believe that's gonna work. I'm gonna work with the administration to make that happen, and we will for sure have that packet to you 5 days ahead of time, which is our standard rule.
Real quick here, sorry, looking at the calendar. Monday, the 19th is Martin Luther King Day. Does that affect us at all?
Does not.
Okay.
It's not a city recognized holiday, but thank you for that. And then, so we're gonna go with the 19th, the 21st, and the 28th. We'll start there. Your travel packets to AML were passed out. Join us this Friday, employee holiday luncheon, 11:30 to 2. We'd love to see you there. And then next regular meeting after tonight is December 15th. And that's all I have. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. Councilmember Graham.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. First, thanks to everybody for being here. I know some of you are regulars and some of you are not, but it's always great to have people here and to get input, even if that input just includes scowls from the gallery. So it's always good to get that. Said a couple things. To talk about. You know, number one, I just have a question. The City of Wasilla holiday schedule, I mean, our contracts with the union say that we'll observe these holidays, but does it say on what dates we will do that? You know, because, you know, some of the dates on the holiday schedule, you know, the holiday's on a Saturday, so we're gonna observe it on a Monday or so on. Do our contracts specify that if the published holiday, you know, falls on a certain date, that it would happen on a Monday or happen on a Friday or the reason I'm asking is purely informational, because for future contracts, you know, I mean, if July the 4th is on a Saturday, why not give the employees a floating holiday to cover the July 4th, because they're not gonna be here on the holiday day anyway. I mean, it's just an added flexibility for employees. Do we know the answer of whether that's something like that might be permissible through negotiation or?
Through the chair to Councilmember Graham, I think anything's open for negotiation. It's my understanding is that the union contracts in terms of our standard holidays follow the code. So if the holiday is on a Saturday, we're closed on Friday. If it's on a Sunday, we're closed on Monday.
Okay, and so you believe that is the code?
My
Okay,
understanding.
thank you, that's very informative,
So
I
I
appreciate
guess
that.
if that is untrue, I'll send an email.
No, I'm trying to find out here. No one knows the code like the clerk, that's for sure. So, the other thing I need to come back to is, IM 2518, which is Lake Lucille Park Playground Removal. You read through this IM, and if you look at the whole thing, you can see that an inspection was completed on or prior to the 1st of September, okay? The removal of the equipment from the park happened on October 22nd, and here we are a month later informing the city council that city assets have been destroyed or disposed of. I find that completely unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. If the inspection comes forward and says, hey, we got a problem here, you know, and we're gonna have to remove or destroy some city equipment, then come to the council and say, hey, we need to do this. Don't send us an IM a couple months later saying, oh, by the way, we decided to, you know, destroy a parking lot that we built, or in this case, take out some playground equipment that appears to have been, you know, not have been inspected very well over time. So I'm assuming that we've fixed the problem of, inspection, and we're talking about a parks plan and things like that. But, you know, city council needs to be advised when city property is going to be intentionally disposed of or destroyed. There's no fault in saying, hey, we got a problem here, we need to fix it. And that temporary fix that we're proposing is to remove it. But to do it without advising the city council, which essentially means you haven't advised the public, I think is completely inappropriate. And I've been by the Lake Lucille a park where the playground was removed. There's no sign there that says, hey, we removed this stuff because it was unsafe. There's still signs there that say, hey, play in here is, you do at your own risk, and there may be hazards and things like that, but there's no equipment to play on. So I just am very uncomfortable with the way that this happened, and I hope in the future that we will make sure that the city council is advised when we're going to, either have some sort of non-routine destruction or destruction or disposal of city property. Then the last thing I have, city business here, comes back to the agenda. And I'm going to look at the attorney when I say this. I mean, the agenda was set, almost 2 weeks ago, okay? And then the agenda was given to the city council on Wednesday, which is 5 days ago, and today we get your 15-page PowerPoint. I'm sorry, I don't find that as being good business practice. Give me that PowerPoint 5 days out so I can look through it, I can study it, and I can come up with questions. I mean, I truly appreciate the fact that you're reading a PowerPoint to me that I can read all by myself, but for those that didn't have the opportunity, and I've been on council for a long time, so you're not telling me anything new, but there are questions there, and for people that, have questions, they should be able to be prepared to ask those questions because they've looked at it prior to the meeting, not just show up and sitting on my desk, there's a 15-page, word intensive PowerPoint. I just don't think that was, I appreciate the training, it's required by the code, but I think there's a better way to do that. And that's just a personal opinion there.
Through the chair to Councilmember Graham, I continue to hear what I will do is information, and it's not the city attorney. A lot of times, Director, we get PowerPoints, because there is no action to be taken, we do get them later. If I don't have a PowerPoint when the packet closes, I will just work to reschedule that then.
I think that would be most helpful because it allows the council to study whatever it is that's coming up and have reasonable questions.
I'm going to say something, and I'm really sorry if this impacts the way that you see my performance. When I prepare a PowerPoint, I do it to prepare myself for the presentation. I provide you the PowerPoint because I think it's a great resource. I don't provide it as something to study before the presentation. We are very busy predominantly with Wasilla projects, all very important. When I do a 30-minute training, the likelihood of me preparing that over a week ahead of time and creating a PowerPoint for your digestion, I will try to do that, but that's just not how I do a presentation, as opposed to, say, a PowerPoint, like some of the Title 16 PowerPoints. Sometimes those PowerPoints are designed to be coordinated with like documents. So we'll have handouts and attachments and worksheets and a PowerPoint that goes with a manual when we do like a 4-hour session. Those usually, I will absolutely make sure those can be in the packet, and it is, but I hear the clerk saying she'll reschedule if there's not a PowerPoint in your packet. I'm telling you the reason why I prepared that PowerPoint was to help me talk to you today. And I give you a copy of that PowerPoint, so you could basically get a copy of my notes. It's not so that you can be prepared by reading the PowerPoint ahead of time.
Well, if I may suggest, Madam Attorney, if that's the point, just send us a cassette tape with the training on it. And, the whole idea is for us to be able to look at that and say, why is this thing in there about tips? Why is it $1,000? Why is for us to learn from it, this is, not to just have you give us information, but to have you give us information that will stick with us and make us better public officials. So, don't take it as a personal comment, but as an instructor, someone who has, considerable experience in instruction can tell you, You know, if you're just gonna stand in front of somebody and talk, you know, 80% of what you tell them is gone by the time your presentation is done. Whereas if they're prepared, you know, which is why teachers give homework, you know, read chapter 1, and then we're gonna talk about chapter 1 tomorrow. That's, you know, that's the whole idea, is to better prepare and have better retention. But that's my personal thing, which doesn't reflect the view of the council. Let me make that clear so I don't have an ethics violation here, so. But anyway, I would find that very handy. You're gonna do the PowerPoint anyway.
Maybe. I think for now on, I might not do them, because I mean, I'm torn on PowerPoints. It sounds like, I believe that PowerPoints detract attention from the words that you're saying a lot of times, and people get focused on, right? So that's the pro and con. So it might be that a better, a well-prepared PowerPoint that isn't just a lot of words, just cutting and, you know, and pointing to the code would meet what you're asking for, Councilmember Graham, better, and that would be something to be prepared and submitted in the packet as a real tool for council. And when we're doing trainings like this one, I think maybe a worksheet where we're interactive and we're working through some of the provisions might fit better, as opposed to a PowerPoint that we lay down on the table. So I'll talk to the clerk and we'll figure out how to.
And that'd be great. My biggest concern is that we actually get training out of it instead of just, you know, saying, yeah, we checked that box. So, thank you. I think that's it for tonight, Madam Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Crafton?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Stu took a couple things, but I did want to mention them as well. The first was the park situation. I agree wholeheartedly about the fact that we just learned about this last week when we got this agenda. I mean, I would have a question for the clerk or the attorney. I mean, is this something that we could, I mean, we can't write the policy, but do we need to codify what has to be communicated to the council basically as soon as possible? I mean, this is something that could have ended up in an email saying, hey, this is what we're doing, heads up. I mean, look across the street. That ended up in an email after the fact again, but still, I've talked with the mayor, or not mayor, excuse me, the clerk about this, and I always say too, like, I don't want to codify something that might end up binding a future mayor, because every mayor is a little different. They have strengths and weaknesses, and the current administration, I should say more so, just seems to not communicate some of these things to us. And so I don't want to feel like the next mayor has to do certain things if they're okay with doing it, or they have a certain style. Or, I mean, things that happen with our police department too, same thing. I feel like there are certain times that the council should be communicated with about what's happening city business wise, so we're not learning about it on Facebook. And whenever a constituent calls us up and says, hey, I have questions about this, and we have to go, I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, it's our job to be informed and be the ones communicating it to them, not the other way around generally. Don't get me wrong, I love hearing that, because again, that's how I also stay informed. You can't keep up with everything. So I know it's kind of an open-ended question, and it isn't necessarily something that needs to be answered right now, but maybe a future conversation that we might have to have around communication with the council. Because again, I can't remember the dates, but the fact that, again, it was a month ago that it was taken out, and we just heard about it this past week. Mr. Graham also brought up a point about the PowerPoints. Holly, I'm just gonna pick on you with it because you're the one that did it tonight. I'll be honest, when I get people that start reading from a PowerPoint, I'm gone. Like, again, it's the fact that I can read it, and so I feel like I'm being read to. And I'm pulling up the code, I'm looking at it. I do like the PowerPoints because I think it gives us something to follow along with. I think it gives the public something to follow along with, because I can guarantee you 80% of the people that show up here aren't pulling the agenda and reading it and going through every line in detail like we are as a council. So I think it is helpful. I think, again, condensing it, I actually just a moment ago, there was a book I read a while back that was the whole concept, was learning not to read from PowerPoints and how to utilize PowerPoints as a way to convey your ideas without having to read from them. So can't remember what the book was, but again, I would like them, but I agree with Mr. Graham. I'd like to see them sooner so that, again, I can take a moment, digest it, and be ready to actually discuss it and have questions instead of feeling like I'm constantly on the back foot. And then there was questions I had in here, and again, because we had moved on and felt like I was being read to, I just went back there and was looking it back and forth. I ended up answering my own question, but still I felt like I could have been prepared to ask those questions ahead of time. So yeah, and then last thing, Mr. Stearns actually came up to me before the meeting and brought this up. This Saturday is Small Business Saturday. And I was curious, I'm not sure who this would go to, unfortunately, the mayor and Crystal Nygaard's not here, but I felt like it would be a good question. I believe the chamber does something for Small Business Saturday where they announce, hey, these are all our small businesses, these are our retail ones. Do we convey any information to them? Do we assist them in any capacity to try and say, hey, you know, these are some small businesses in our city here? I understand that there's a fine balance because we can't seem like we're promoting certain businesses over other ones. But do we have any type of joint effort with them on how we can work to promote small businesses at all? Or can we? Mr. Graham seems like you might want to answer it, but go ahead, Jamie, if you want to.
I was just gonna say, Mr. Graham's much more suited to answer this, but
Okay.
because Chamber's a private a membership-based organization, I imagine their role is to promote members of Chamber, but I don't know.
The clerk is correct. It is the role of the chamber to promote the community in general and businesses in particular. And for the past couple of years, the chamber has not really actively promoted Small Business Saturday in Palmer. They do. The chamber takes a different role there and tries to bring people into Palmer to spend money, you know, which collects sales tax, of course. But the Wasilla Chamber hasn't done that in the past, or hasn't done it in the last couple of years. Our role, the city's role in the last couple of years has been to sponsor activities that the chamber does, but since they have no activity that I'm aware of for Small Business Saturday, and there was no opportunity for sponsorship or promotion, the city did not fund anything to that. Does that help, Mr. Crafton?
It helps. So I guess my question would be, because I understand that maybe a business doesn't want to be fully publicized. So I mean, is it a question we could ask them of saying, hey, when Small Business Saturday comes up, we just want to publish a list that says these are the small businesses inside the city of Wasilla. We're not endorsing them, we're not sponsoring them, we're just telling you these are the retail businesses. If you want to go shop there, great. Because I mean, you'd be surprised at how many small businesses people don't know about, because unless you drive by them, you don't know a lot of times, or you're not in that little niche. Is that a possibility that we're allowed to do? And if there's no answer right now, then that's fine. I mean, just food for thought. I can get the answer later. I see a lot of confused faces, so I'll go with that. So other than that, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. It was a very good meeting. Thank you all for staying here. I know we're all here talking a lot tonight, but I appreciate you all for staying, and have a safe Thanksgiving, and we'll see the council at AML for the 5 of us going, and the rest of you on the 15th.
Councilmember Cottle?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'm not going to beat a dead horse with the park equipment, but I think we can do better with communication. You know, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and nobody likes getting beat up over issues. I would have had questions regarding some of this equipment before it was removed, but it's a moot point now. But I think we can do better with communication, and not only from departments to us, but from us to departments too. So, Holly, I'm just gonna say thank you for your training. We've all been through training. Everybody here learns differently. Some are visual, some are audio, you know. And it is the job of each council member to know our ethics code. But your trainings are good, and I think that you can never have too much of that. I have sat through, you know, training here with the commissions, and I think it's always good to have the refreshers, no matter how they're delivered. So, thank you. And just want to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. I will choose to beat the dead horse but for a different reason. I was really disappointed with 2518. I have long complained on Newcomb Park, on Iditarod Park, and now we find Lucille Park's equipment is not being maintained. My discouragement is the fact that we in the city is not maintaining the stuff. Oh, then we find out that it's broken to the point where we've got to remove it altogether. This is unacceptable. As far as training goes, I really love training. I believe that the training should be posted in a training folder because this is not the first time that we've had ethics training, and guess what? It won't be the last. So why do we have to recreate all of the PowerPoints every time by somebody? Maybe we update them, but they should be online so we all could review in ahead. So when we see training is coming up, go to the folder and look at the training. Thank you. Everybody should have a nice Thanksgiving. Goodbye.
Councilmember Schmidt?
I want to say thank you for the PowerPoint. I really enjoyed it. I did learn a few things on it because I haven't sat through it myself, and I do approve that. And I am glad we finally got through the downtown overlay and got that removed. I think that was stifling to a lot of our businesses here in the community, and I think that was a huge win for tonight. That's all I've got. Happy Thanksgiving.
And I'll bring it back to me. All right, I got to end on a high note, joyful note. I dropped the puck at the Guns N' Hoses this last weekend, and Scott, the Menard Center, it was packed. It's beautiful. I found myself a few times just sitting back and going, wow, like you've done an amazing job. That event was awesome too. And then I'm just going to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And looking at the clock, with no further business at hand, I'm adjourning the meeting unless objection is raised. No? Good. Reach for it. I was, hearing none, the meeting is adjourned.